This is Rummy's Corner. Good evening, boxing fans, and welcome back to the latest installment of the Top 10 by Decade scoring experiment. Here in Part 10, we're going to examine the junior lightweight division, or the super featherweight division if you prefer, and we're going to try and objectively determine the top 10 junior lightweights from each decade. As always, we will be utilizing Ring Magazine's rich archive of historical rankings. Ring Magazine began doing annual rankings for the junior lightweight division starting in 1924, and they did so until 1931 before discontinuing the practice until 1962. And that is where we will begin here. At the conclusion of 1962, these were the top-rated junior lightweights according to Ring Magazine. Flash Elorde was champion, so he receives 10 points for being the first name on the list. Next is Ray Nobile, so he gets 9 points. We continue allocating points like this until the 10th name on the list, and he receives 1 point. Mel Middleton is the 11th name on the list, and he doesn't receive any points. We're only concerned with the top 10 names. If we go ahead and do this for every year from 1962 through 1969, the final result from the partial decade looks like this. Flash Elorde finished first with an even 50 points. He was considered the best of the division for 5 straight years, and since we only have 8 years of data to work with here, it makes perfect sense that he tops this list. Then we have Love Elote in second and Johnny Bizarro in third. Looking ahead to the 1970s, Samuel Serrano topped the list with 50 points, just edging out Ben Villaflor, who had 47 points. Villaflor was considered the best in the division for 4 straight years during the middle portions of the 70s, and Serrano was considered the best during the later parts of the 70s. Officially, Serrano had a victory and a draw against Villaflor, but head-to-head results don't factor into this scoring. And the main thing separating these two is that Serrano was rated as a top 10 junior lightweight once more than Villaflor. It's also worth noting here that this is the second top 10 finish for Alexis Arguello. He also finished in the top 10 as a 1980s lightweight. Then looking at the junior lightweights from the 1980s, we only have a partial data set for the 80s because Ring didn't publish junior lightweight rankings in 1987 or 88. But based on the data we do have available, Rocky Lockridge finished first with 32 points. Roger Mayweather was second with 29 points. Then we have the winner again from the previous decade, Sam Serrano in third. For Julio Cesar Chavez, this is his second top 10 appearance, as he was also a top 10 junior welterweight in the 90s. Now moving along to the junior lightweights from the 1990s, Genaro Hernandez finished first with a terrific 68-point total, and just behind him was Azuma Nelson with an impressive 65-point total of his own. Looking quickly at these numbers, Nelson was considered the best at the conclusion of 5 different years, compared to just 1 year for Hernandez. But Hernandez was considered top 10 in the weight class for 9 straight years. And that's the main difference here. This is the second top 10 finish for Arturo Gatti, who also was a top 10 junior welterweight in the double O's. And for Floyd Mayweather Jr., this is his 5th top 10 finish, which is now the most top 10 finishes we have seen from any boxer so far throughout the ranking experiments. On to the double O's, Joel Casamayor finished first with 36 points, edging out Chavez, who had 35. Then we have El Terrible, Eric Morales, edging out his rival, Marco Antonio Barrera. We also have Manny Pacquiao not far behind, tied for 5th, and this is the second top 10 appearance we have seen from Pacquiao so far. He also finished as a top 10 welterweight in the current decade. And then looking down below the top 10, Floyd Mayweather Jr. missed the mark here. So officially he still stands at 5 top 10 finishes. But it's probably worth noting that this is the 7th time that we've seen Floyd finish in the top 15. So Floyd hasn't scored particularly high on any of these individual weight class lists, but he's appearing in an awful lot of top 10 lists on the whole. And I think this is reflective of the fact that Floyd was always very well regarded, even as he was moving up through different weight classes. And now, even though the current decade is not yet complete, through the end of 2017, the list looks like this. Takashi Uchiyama is the current leader with an outstanding 61-point total. He holds a comfortable lead over Roman Martinez, who is the only boxer on this list who could still mathematically pass Uchiyama. So Uchiyama looks like a lock to finish first here, but we will just have to wait and see how the next 2 years play out before anything is finalized with the results here. Looking at the most dominant decades from those we covered, Gennaro Hernandez from the 90s had the best decade under the scoring system. Then we have Azuma Nelson, also from the 90s. Then Uchiyama is third from the current decade, and tied for fourth, Flash Elorde from the 60s and Samuel Serrano from the 70s. In total, there were only 2 boxers who appeared on multiple top 10 lists, and the standout among these 2 standouts here is Serrano, who had a first place finish and a third place finish. Although that third place finish was from a partial decade of data, the 1980s. So if we add up all the points from all the decades we covered, including the residual points, which I wasn't counting in the earlier episodes, the final result looks like this. Again, we have Samuel Serrano finishing on top, and then he's closely followed by Nelson, Hernandez, and Uchiyama. Looking at this list, I think it reinforces the idea that this weight class lacks the rich history of the original 8. So moving forward with the scoring experiment, we have just 7 weight classes left that we're going to take a look at, and we're going to do brief decade recaps where we try and determine the best boxers from the 1920s, the 1930s, and all the way up to the 00s. And finally, after that, it will be the grand finale top 100 countdown, which combines all the point totals every boxer has ever accumulated under this scoring system. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. Please stay tuned for part 11 of the ranking experiment. Next up, the featherweight division. Take care and have a great night.